Joining us is Dr. Jaha Howard, candidate for State Senate District 35 for the runoff. Thank you so much for being here.
Yeah, thank you for having me, Faith.
Dr. Howard, let's start with the election that we saw. You coming out on top of this election, 6 candidates in that race. You pulled nearly 33% of the vote, about a 7-point lead ahead of your opponent now, Roger Bruce, in this runoff. For those who are watching this interview, why are you a better candidate than Mr. Bruce?
That's an interesting question. I think right now, I think I speak for the people a little bit more accurately and in line with what people want. People want fresh, bold leadership. People want a fighter. People want integrity. People want experience, the right kind of experience, and people who have an ear to the ground and listens to people and understanding the moment.
Yeah. If you get the job, what's your top priority, day one, going in?
Everything costs too much. Affordability in every single way. How many times do you go to the grocery store and just can't believe how much basic things cost? Our bills, our utilities, everything costs too much, and trust is too low. So that's a terrible combination when it comes to trusting our institutions, especially our government. So we have to build trust. We have to make sure we're holding the powerful accountable, but we also have to make sure we take these things very seriously and not just give talking points and just email blasts to people. We have to really get some work done.
Of course, if you do get the seat that was once held by former State Senator Jason Estevez, who's now, of course, running for governor, you will be part of a minority under the Gold Dome. The good thing is that Republicans are also saying that everything is too high. What's a policy that you could see yourself working across the aisle with to bring these prices down for people in Georgia?
Yeah, there's a couple of things that we can do to bring prices down. One thing I think is our health insurance, our mental health is a big thing. Make sure that right now in Georgia, we're the #1 place to do business is what we tout, but we are far from the #1 place to raise a family, far from the #1 place to bring a child into this world. And for us to stay competitive, we have to make sure we take these things seriously. But speaking of cost, I think one big thing that's happening right now is just the influence of data centers. It's taken over across the country, and we have major data centers right all around the metro Atlanta area. And we have seen across the country that we've had a secondary effect of bills getting higher, effect on our environment, our water use. People like the idea of data centers. Okay, it's bringing jobs, but when you dig into it a little bit, what kind of jobs are we talking about? Is it more than just the construction jobs to build these huge facilities? What happens after it's built? Then the numbers start looking a little bit different. What about the water use? Some of these data centers are taking up the amount of water of a small city. Some of the amount of energy that they're using from our power grid is enough energy for a middle to big size city in the United States, all within a few blocks. This is out of control. And when we talked earlier about trust being low, how do we deal with these big issues and trust being low? So we have to have a really detailed conversation, and Democrats have been pushing on this, not to stop progress, but to really have an open conversation with transparency. But Republicans, the reasonable Republicans, are starting to say, you know what, we need to talk about this because this is literally in my backyard as well.
Yeah, and we've heard some people on the ground, red and blue, who have their opinions about these data centers. Just to clarify, are you saying that getting rid of the data centers will help with the cost?
Oh, that's not what I said at all.
Okay.
I think it's important to know that our country has bet big on AI, so data centers are coming. Here's what we have not done. We have not told a more full truth about what data centers bring, the cost. How do we mitigate that? How do we make sure that we don't have state law kind of sneaking in that's going to push the cost of these things to the everyday consumer instead of data centers paying their fair share? Are they doing that extra step by developing ways to have their own internal power use? Those things are possible, but we can use state law to add more protections for everyday citizens who don't see all the other aspects that go along with it.
Thank you for clarifying.
No problem.
Getting back to my original question, what policies do you see that you could work across the aisle that will bring prices down for people in Georgia?
Right now, we can talk about rent prices And we have companies who have been named in some lawsuits, who have been a part of artificially raising rents in Georgia and around the country, using algorithms, using these third-party groups to artificially inflate rents. We can make sure that we have state law that has some teeth that's holding these companies accountable. The other thing is, it is pretty much ridiculous. I get very passionate about this because I know between my family home growing up and so many people that I know, there are huge companies with Wall Street money backing them, coming and swooping up houses in our neighborhoods that we grew up in. How are individuals who are trying to keep their family home or buy their first homes supposed to compete with Wall Street money? State law can do something about that. We need to make sure that the American dream is intact, and we have to be serious about that.
What would you suggest? Like putting some type of block to make sure developers aren't coming in? And I would say, what do you suggest? And I keep prefacing this with, because it will have to take a bipartisan effort, correct? So what could you see Republicans also getting behind?
Yeah, everything that you heard me say, Republicans want to stay in their own home as well. Republicans want to make sure, Democrats and Republicans, we want to make sure there's affordability across the board. And nobody likes a cheater. We don't want to stop business. We don't want to stop business. We want to make sure our economy is growing and flowing, but for everybody. And what we don't want are super big businesses, many of them who do not even have a home base here in Georgia. They're swooping in here, taking advantage of everyday people. And Republicans and Democrats alike are going to get behind that.
So would you suggest like stopping that cold turkey, only allowing some people in?
We have to have protections. So oftentimes when it comes to policy, we think of these extremes. The concept of a company coming in and buying some homes is one thing, but when you're scooping up a quarter or a third of the homes in the city of Atlanta, and if we do deeper dive in Metro Atlanta, that's a big deal. Now the market is all thrown off. And so we can't just let these mega companies just come in and take over. We have to have some protections. It's all about balance. And we don't hear that enough in politics. We think of extremes. No. The best ideas are usually right there that kind of we have an appreciation from ideas from both sides of the aisle.
Thank you for your answer.
No problem.
I want to ask you about healthcare because as we know, the government shutdown really kind of revolved around the extension of Affordable Care Act, enhanced subsidies that Democrats warn will increase premiums for everyone.
Yes.
If you're elected to the seat, you'll be coming into a session where the state might be responsible for helping people pay for their health insurance, trying to figure out those healthcare costs. What is your suggestion coming in? What's your thought process?
Yeah, I think as a pediatric dentist that sees hundreds of patients a week, that's the beauty of state lawmakers. We have the opportunity to have a true ear on the ground, to listen to people. It's designed for us to be working folks who are in the community. We can go to our Congress persons, we can go to our senators, our U.S. senators, and say, look, we have to do something. Obamacare has some benefits, but let's be honest, it is not perfect. It is a good Band-Aid. But let's talk about what we really need to do. Do we need to revive a conversation about public option? Because there is an appetite for that on both sides of the aisle. Do we, I know that the more progressive wing of the Democratic Party is Medicare for all. You know, that's at least there are conversations about solutions. On my Republican friends, if you look on the right and you see what their options are, we don't have a lot of options. Even recently, the president said, okay, I had, well, before that, remember there were concepts of a plan. And then just recently, it's like, okay, now I have some ideas, but that got postponed just recently. Maybe by the time this airs, we'll hear what that plan is. But we have to do something. This has been going on for decades. It almost reminds me of the school funding formula in Georgia. It's 40 years old. I mean, I'm almost 45 years old. Our funding formula in Georgia for our public schools is 40 years old, and we tinker around the edges. That's exactly what we've been doing in our country when it comes to health insurance. It's time for real change, getting serious, stop playing the games of, well, all the ideas have to come from one side of the aisle. No, let's find the common ground and be relentless about going after that.
And I'm glad that you brought up education because you were once on the Cobb County School Board making some very important decisions for our youth. What's the biggest issue right now for you when it comes to education? Of course, you would be representing parts of Cobb and Fulton County.
Sure. The biggest issue in public education for me and for almost everyone else that I know is literacy. Literacy. Our kids in the state, by and large, can't read well. Mm-hmm. We are afraid to say that. We have significant pockets where literacy is a huge problem. And we know that if our kids are not reading well by the third grade, it gets very, very difficult after that. We have to invest, major investment in pre-K, in 3-year-olds, 4-year-olds, being able to get a head start, so that way we can make sure they're entering our kindergarten class and our first grade ready to read. So literacy, and it gets complicated. There's a lot of different camps, but by Republicans and Democrats, nonprofit organizations, churches are getting behind the concept of literacy. And right now, with everything being so divided, even though we all know a house divided cannot stand, when it comes to education, we agree that literacy is key and is paramount.
And you're saying that Republicans and Democrats can agree on that. Now, can they agree on where the funding could come for these programs? What do you suggest?
We can and we will. We can and we will. And it's going to take bipartisan effort. It's going to take creativity. It's going to use technology. It's going to use our churches, our nonprofits. Folks are ready.
Do you have any ideas of where that specific funding could come from?
The funding is there. We have to be more creative with the funding that's there. There's a concept of being faithful over a few things, and you might get more, right? Because the public trust in our institution is low, because it's low, people are hesitant about using taxpayer money to do any new project. Too many people just say, oh, throw more money at it, throw more money at it. Well, let's prove that we can do right with the money that we do have. And then I think you'll see people be happy to give more money towards specific things, and then show people what we're doing. Don't just change the terminology. Don't just shift the rubric around and use all this language where folks, the layperson is like, okay, what's going on? And these are the games that we play. These are the games that we play. It's enough of the games. People are sick of it. Our kids need to learn how to read. And they're going to do it. And that change is happening right now. You already see the energy popping up all over the state. But now it's time to have government not fix everything, but just to help coordinate all these wonderful efforts that are happening.
And speaking of literacy, I want to ask you about a case out of Cobb County back in 2023. Of course, this was after you were on the board. There's a teacher named Katie Renderly, an elementary school teacher who was fired after reading a book called My Shadow is Purple to her elementary class. That book touches on LGBTQ and gender fluidity. A parent raised a concern. The board voted, once again, you were not on that board, but they voted to fire her. Was Cobb County right to fire Ms. Renderly? And would you support protections for teachers who use inclusive, age-appropriate books?
Yeah, it's a good question. I think what you're seeing are lightning rod issues. When I was on the school board, we talked about this is when critical race theory was all the rage of talk. We have to make sure that we're not making children feel uncomfortable when talking about our history. And then came the issues about banned books. But what people don't know is that these are billion-dollar industries, political industries, making sure that this is what we're focusing on. Instead of, what are the reading scores? How does that compare county by county? How does that compare state by state? What are we going to do about it? That's where we're going to focus. And I think these questions are fair, but to put that as a priority ahead of the concept of reading in general, that means we're starting from a divided point. Let's start where we're working together, hand in hand, saying, hey, we're focusing on literacy. And along the way, guess what? We're going to have some good dialogue about what they should be reading. Those are fair questions. But it's so much beneficial, and it's to have charity for the other side of the argument if you're already working on a project together. But if you're starting from a position of division, we're going nowhere. At the end of the day, kids still can't read. That has to change. And I think you're seeing that tone. People are appreciating that concept of identity politics. It's good to really ask those questions. But if we lead with that, we're automatically starting with division. Let's start with the common ground and then deal with potential points of division along the way.
Do you believe Cobb County was right to fire the teacher, Ms. Renderly here, and would you support protections for those teachers?
Yes.
And I will even make it a little bit broader.
Yeah.
Let's say there's another teacher, a parent has a disagreement with them. Do you support protections for those teachers?
Yeah, I think teachers should be protected. I think school districts also have to, and this is the balance, school districts have to decide what's appropriate material for every grade, for every level. So I support school districts being able to do that because this school district belongs to the people. And individual teachers should have protections, but they also can't just decide to read whatever they want. So there has to be a balance.
Thank you for your answer. Can I ask you this? We know that you've run for several different seats in Georgia, Senate, school board, state superintendent, county commission. Now you're running for Senate again. What do you say to some voters who might feel that you are chasing a title rather than committing to one community role?
Yeah, all I'm chasing is to serve my God. This is about ministry, and I serve where there is an opportunity, and I serve however I can. When people ask a couple of follow-up questions, they'll realize that we were in our office organizing parents about public education. And then our state senator at the time was pushing public money for private vouchers. Nobody was running against him. I look around, I say, well, I'm not going to just let him run unopposed, so I run for state senate. So it wasn't about the seat, it's about the situation at hand. Later on, when working in public education, my school board member decided to not run for another term. We have an open seat. We're looking around. People are not very interested. I've been an advocate for public education. You know what? I'm going to run. And we did a wonderful job in making sure that people even know who their school board member is. We had more engagement than ever before. And who knew that it was going to be during COVID and during the CRT craze? I'm thankful for the opportunity that God gave me to serve in that capacity. As a school board member, when you ruffle a few feathers, sometimes they draw you out of your seat. And that's what happened to me as a school board member. They drew me in with my colleague who were working hard to have good conversations about literacy and talk about race in a meaningful way. When you're drawn out of your seat, you have to find another way to make a difference. And that's where the next seat came from. When a good friend of mine was all the political backlash, and when it came to home rule in Cobb County and being pushed out of her seat, I wanted to make sure there was really good representation on the Cobb County Commission. And we won that primary. The follow-up question will be, well, what happened? Well, there was some interesting ruling and things that never happened. We have someone who won their primary and their runoff, and then the election was thrown out. Okay. We had to do it all over again a few months later, and I was defeated. Okay. And here we are with a district that seems to be almost like I hand drew the district. It's a district that this is where I grew up. It's where I went to high school. It's where I go to church. It's where I live. It's where I work. It is the craziest gerrymandered district. It looks like a tomahawk in the metro Atlanta. But I have deep roots in every single part of this district. I think it's fair to say, you know what? This district deserves excellent representation with integrity, with boldness. And what we're not going to do is have a placeholder. Somebody may be saving a seat for a friend and all the things that you find out when you start asking a few questions. We're not playing those games. These are people that I grew up with. These are the people that I live with. These are my patients. These are our families. These are some of our grandparents. It's not a game. So people can say, oh, some say this, some say that. They can say what they want. There's work to be done, and I move with urgency. And if the Lord has blessed me with good health and good mind, good strength, and as long as my wife is in support, we move. And we do what we need to do and take care of business. And so I'm excited about representing the citizens of District 35.
Thank you. And I want to be mindful of your time, but I do want to point something out really quick. Are you saying that Mr. Bruce is running for this to be a placeholder for one of his friends?
It's clear. Those conversations are clear. People who know anything about politics behind the scenes, they know.
What do they know?
They know. And when you ask him, he can tell you.
Okay.
Yeah. I don't know if you'll get a full, straight answer, but that's the kind of thing that people are tired of. They're tired of games. And anybody who knows anything about Georgia politics in this area knows that there's nothing but games being played behind the scenes, and voters are tired of it. And I think your original question was, what do you think was helpful for your win? People know that I'm sincere. People know that I'm not playing games. And people know that I'm here to make sure that we're making life better. We're here to make life better, Republicans and Democrats and independents, for everyone in the state.
I said, what makes you better than Mr. Bruce? But yes, you're correct, and you answered with that. That was the first question. Being mindful of your time again, I like to end these conversations not from my paper, but just from your head and your heart.
Yeah.
60 seconds. What is your message to the voters as they're heading into this runoff?
My message is that I love God and love people. That's my whole approach to everything. And when it comes to loving people and loving God, that requires sacrifice. That requires doing things that are uncomfortable. That requires not being so focused on the end that you don't think about the means. The how you do it matters. Building trust matters. And that's what you're going to get from me. And I'm excited about representing District 35. This is where I grew up. This is where I work. This is where I live. This is where I worship. And we're here to do things differently, not just for District 35, but for the entire state of Georgia.
Thank you so much, Dr. Howard.
Thank you.
We truly appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.